Hello, everyone. How's it going? I am Megan. I'm going to remove my mask. There's no one else in the building. We made sure of that. And I'm going to welcome you to the Foundry. So this is the Foundry. We're in Buffalo, New York. And come on in. All right, this is our lobby. The videographer of the day, is that the word, is our education director, Deb Sarlin. She is holding the camera right now. This is our main lobby, and I'll give you a little bit of a back history around how the Foundry got started. I'm sure similar to some of you guys out there. My background's in woodworking, and I was running my own business looking for space. And ended up finding a warehouse and ended up with my shop in here. Fast forward, added a bunch of different tenants who were similar makers looking for support in learning how to run a small business. We focus in our small businesses primarily on women and people of color, although we support everyone in here, and you'll see as we go throughout. The other half of our mission is really about teaching young people about making and also how that intersects with entrepreneurship. So we have some programs that we'll talk about as we go through the tour. We're going to wander around and stop by a few of the different spaces, businesses, and then we will show some of our maker spaces as well. So just to give you an idea, because if you've been watching some of the other spaces, we have about 25,000 square feet, and let's see, I think 25 to 30% are businesses, and the rest is sort of a mix of us and some other educational nonprofits that we work with and we partner with. So we are going to get started. If you can see what Deb is showing you, all of the spaces have been built out. So if you can imagine 7 years ago, we didn't have any walls, and we used to host huge, gigantic parties in here. All sorts of fun, like we had Bread and Puppet in here, and all sorts of performances, and have since built out the space in collaboration with Western New York Youth Build, which is a partner program. And they are a construction trades program. It's a 9-month program where they learn all different construction and helped us build some of these spaces that you'll see. And so we will go off on our tour. So normally it depends on the day. People always ask like how many people are in here. Obviously with COVID, I think, people have been a little challenged in terms of when they arrive and when they leave. We try to make sure that there is a safe number of people at any time.
But it's also a beautiful day in Buffalo, and it's potentially the last gorgeous Saturday of the fall. So I think Megan and I are the only two in here today.
Yes, which is helpful because we have a all mask policy. So
which we are violating today because it's just the two of us, and we are part of a pod,
yes,
as they are saying.
The Chronopod. So Deb just passed one of our makers, the Bullhead Graphics. So Sam runs a printing company and has large format printers in there, also some vinyl cutting and cutting equipment.
And what's really great about having these adults on site is then the kids that we are working with get a sense of the different skills that the expert small businesses are developing as they create their own levels of expertise in similar areas. The other cool thing about this corridor is that youth build group that is here in the different shops learning were originally responsible for making all of these sliding doors and creating all of the walls that separate the different spaces that the adult businesses use. One empty space. Is anybody interested in coming into Buffalo? And
if you live in Buffalo, come and join us.
Or even if you don't,
Or
come move.
We got Deb here. She's not originally from Buffalo, so I always like to point out the giant doors here. So we have some pretty fantastic skilled woodworkers on site. And these giant doors, which are about, I don't know, 12 feet tall or something, were made from old, what are those? Seats in gyms, bleachers. So it was old bleacher seats that got repurposed. So this is an open space that we have a lot of different community events in. Obviously, a little bit more without COVID, but we used to have Rock the Mic every month, which is an open mic session. You can come in and try out all sorts of different lyrics. Really, the idea is making creative opportunities for people to come in that wouldn't normally identify as makers or entrepreneurs, but then they sort of soak in the entrepreneurial spirit. And we've had some success in working with them and seeing some folks come in through programming and stuff. So this is also, we do some classes in here. So we've been working with our youth entrepreneurship class in here. So they meet 2 days a week, learning about the basics of making and how do you convert into e-commerce and make money in the business ideas that you have. So those are 11th and 12th graders that we're working with this year. Stop at this one there.
Sure.
We are going to start into our first space, our first makerspace shared area. So we're going to start in here. This is our Textile Lab. Deb, do you want to talk about it? Or?
Sure. So Megan created in the woodshop these wonderful Murphy bed-like tables that can drop down and enable 8 different practitioners to come and take a class in, for example, quilting. And we can reconfigure the space if instead we're using the space for a crocheting class, and then drag the tables into the center of the room and grab our crochet needles and our yarn and repurpose it for different events in here. In each of the community maker spaces, we're really working on having tools in here that are associated with hand making and hand building, as well as computer assisted design. So in the back, you see that there's a computer here in this Textile Lab, and that enables us to create files that then we duplicate on the embroidery machine. So there's computer assisted design work that takes place in the Textile Lab or the Tech Lab or the metal shop or the wood shop. And so we have tools associated for that computer assisted design process in each of the spaces, as well as the crochet hooks and the knitting needles and the different potentials for quilting in this space as well. And in this space, we do a lot of sew electric projects. Here are some leftovers from the last group of, was it 6th graders or 8th graders? I think it was 8th graders. 8th graders making stuffed animals with little embedded circuits for younger kids. And if you press the nose of the little animal, the embedded sensor underneath the nose, which is a touch sensor and is hidden by the felt, becomes activated and the circuit works and the eyes light up. And so we have a that was a great design and build and learn more about circuits and electricity and STEAM-based education. And we also have old-timey making things as well. Yeah, we have some looms as well. So we're walking through one of the other corridors that holds a not-for-profit, a number of different makers.
Yeah, resin artists. Resin casting.
And Beth does a lot of metal as well as mixed media. And this is a really interesting space. Drew uses the wood shop to construct bird feeders, and then the laser to cut design elements that are inside of those bird feeders. He's transitioning from using Frank Lloyd Wright only designs to having built a number of his own designs, and so is in the process of transitioning over from that, using a very famous architect's work to now designing his own images. You can't really see back there, so I'm going to pivot over this way back to Megan, and now we're going to go into the tech lab.
So I mistakenly didn't charge my battery, so we are gonna make a pit stop and plug in while we are in the tech lab. So this is the tech lab. We have 3D printers in here, so many makerspaces. We use M3Ds to get started. So if you're not familiar with those, there's a bunch of them sitting around.
Yeah, we've got a teaching set of the M3Ds, and we're in the process now of using the Wazer to cut glass plates for the bottom of them. If anybody is familiar with M3Ds, you know that the plates at the bottom of those printers are not great. So it's fun to have, or it's important for us to have many different spaces here. As I said, in the wood shop, Megan made those tables for the Textile Lab. In the wood shop, she made the caddies to hold the filament for M3Ds and for 3D printing generally. And so in the Digifab Lab, we're cutting glass plates for the, oh yeah, we also use the Glowforge laser to hold for some filament holders. And so M3Ds, a couple of handmade 3D printers, a large, I think this is, there was some crazy, the Glacial Summit.
Oh yeah.
We were given a in-dimension Glacial Summit right before COVID hit. One of the fans died, so we've yet to replace that fan. You can see we've taken it apart a little bit, but so large scale 3D printing, as well as these little monsters that help us get started, especially with kids. Although we do a lot of adult intro to 3D printing in this space too. We have tinkering space and areas for members and for supervisors to do soldering quietly in the back. And then we have our laser setup. We have both an industrial laser that we call the Red Monster, and one of our Glowforges is here in the tech lab for educational purposes. We do a lot of work in here with sensors. So Megan waved her hand over our little nightlight in the back, laser cut, student designed nightlight project. But then we also have one of our board members is very active. He has set up a whole bunch of boxes throughout the Foundry that read the temperature, sense the temperature, and if the temperature gets too cold in here, those sensor boxes automatically kick on the overhead heat throughout the Foundry. So again, a nice way of bringing together adult expertise on site and pointing that out to the students and examining the innards of boxes like that to then create other kinds of projects like kid designed sensor driven night lights. And we made about 10 of those. We've got to do another one of those. Heading on into the next corridor that will lead us to the wood shop.
You want to skip that direction?
Oh, why should you feel like we should go swing by and just look at some of the other adult? Yeah, sure.
So we have an upstairs, is about 5,000 square feet that we just renovated. Western New York Youth Build's a great partner of ours, and they're upstairs, and they have between 30 and 60 students throughout the year that they work with. They have classrooms upstairs, and then they use all of our spaces downstairs as well. And then we also collaborate with them on a manufacturing training, advanced manufacturing training, which is largely about computer design, but also learning about like metalwork as well, because we're partnered with local companies to just teach more about some of the stuff that they do, so that students might have like a head start in terms of potentially working in those fields.
So we were one of the lucky recipients of the match grants that came down through the SBA to help fund that. Again, we teach kids how to solder, and then we have these amazing on-site practitioners who use similar tools to the tools that we're trying to teach the students how to use. And Abe Glass and Bridget here redoes a lot of the broken and older leaded stained glass in the area. Wonderful practitioner, also does her own new designs. Inclusive Theater of Western New York is a wonderful partner to have here at the Foundry. They do theatrical production with kids who we don't necessarily think of as performers, kids who are on the autism spectrum, who are in wheelchairs. Their most recent project here was Shakespeare in the Parking Lot. And so kids write and perform, and adults as part of the Inclusive Theater of Western New York, and they're a wonderful group to have on site. They also do a lot of prop work. You can see a really nice tree in the background, but I can't get in there to show you the whole thing.
And now we're gonna head back toward the wood shop. So it's funny, you know, our staff is sort of, we have a really small staff. We only have four staff really, but we seem to be split along our different skill sets. So I'm obviously, you know, I talked about being in the wood shop, so that's sort of where I feel most comfortable. And so we have a nice group of individuals that we're able to sort of share with each other all the sorts of skill sets that we each have our own expertise in.
Yeah, like I don't know anything about wood, and so love to defer to our expert in front of us. And then we have some folks on site who have some real printing chops. Do you want to talk about the history of? I love that little round wood puck.
Yes, so I was in the wood shop running a commercial business, making bottle openers. It was a commission from a brewery, I think, and so they had asked me to do that. I was like, sure. You know, we were making several hundred of them, and the guy who was in here was making a completely different business, and he was actually cutting up wine glasses. If you're very familiar with, I'm sure you've seen them at art fairs and stuff, where you have a plate that it's a melted wine glass or wine bottle. He was doing all that sort of stuff and just trying to find a way to quit his full-time job. He saw the thing that I was making, and he's a huge hockey fan. So he was like, oh my gosh, could I, you know, jump off that idea and make something. And so he makes bottle openers out of hockey pucks. He also has a UV printer, which, you know, he owns it. But what's beautiful about Makerspaces, as you all know, is that people tend to like to share with each other. So oftentimes we rely on his expertise in order to get certain things printed with him. So it's able to print on pretty much any
surfaces,
any sorts of surfaces. And if you're familiar with going to the dentist, it's a very similar process where the curing happens once the UV light shines over the ink that's printed. So he does bottle openers out of golf balls and baseballs and hockey pucks.
And was called during the last Christmas season one of the 10 best gifts during the holiday season for men.
Stuffer.
Yeah, and so you can imagine how many orders came in from that kind of Facebook, I don't know, blurb. And so he moved from a very small space and now has a couple of different employees and has this entire corridor. So a very successful company here at the Foundry. And some people come by and say, oh my gosh, that company is here at the Foundry. I had no idea. We bought some for our company. And it's kind of like, yeah, in this funny little space here in Buffalo. That's where Dave got started, and he's doing very, very well.
And previously in that space, there was a young woman who started a beauty product company. So she was 9 years old, and She was 9 years old, and her mother was looking for space for her. They started in here. It's called Xandra Beauty, and now has expanded to all the Target stores across the US. And she's in a much bigger space. So they started in like 100, 200 square feet here, and has graduated, but her mother comes back and teaches all the youth entrepreneurship sessions with our after school students. So always great to have, you know, makers and community members. This is our wood shop. We teach adult classes, youth classes. A lot of our focus is on making community projects for different block clubs and other sorts of nonprofit community groups. And we have all sorts of tools in here. So if you're, you know, familiar with any of the woodshop tools, we pretty much have a lot of them. I don't know, not much more to say about this space, I don't think.
One of the projects that's being done even during these COVID times is one of our school groups that gets funded by the Buffalo Public School is in here working with one of our instructors who's got some expertise in designing materials for playgrounds. So a little play structure is being created here in this shop with a group of 9th and 10th graders with Paul Borden. So that will go out to Oxford Street and Lafayette Street, the cross street there where there's a park, and a little play structure is being made out of wood in this area that used to be Megan's space for her business.
Yes. And then also something to mention is our partner program, Western New York Youth Build, and the Service Collaborative. They do beds for Buffalo out of here and our outside patio. And they make 200 beds for kids transitioning out of homelessness into housing, or for other reasons that somebody might need a single bed for their child, it's like a child bed. And on a Friday, there's anywhere between, you know, 20 to 40 and 50 people who are shuffling in here and outside, and it's all sorts of crazy, but really pretty amazing operation. So if you're interested, you can look up Beds for Buffalo as well.
And even in these COVID times, they've been having small groups come in and use the outdoor space. So it's nice that some of our projects haven't shut down completely.
Yeah, some of them have and some of them haven't.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. We're missing a lot of the people that would be here on a Saturday normally. We're passing by some of the projects that got made with community involvement. So the Fruit Belt group working with India from
Fruit Belt Community Land Trust
came in with a whole group of different folks and learned how to use the wood tools and constructed these planters. This one, I believe, is going to have a bench attached to the side of it. And it's especially great for older gardeners who, you know, just have trouble kneeling on the cold ground. And so we helped them do a design project that came up with this as a possibility for older gardeners in the Fruit Belt area to have a space to plant.
And then it was also finished with the Mayor Summer Youth.
Good point.
We have every summer, we have Mayor Summer Youth on site. This year we have six students, yeah. 6 students. And then they're here 20 hours a week for 6 weeks at a time, working on projects like the planters that you just saw, really just learning skills, getting them interested in making, and passionate about making an entrepreneurship, like we all are.
And we love teaching kids how to, you know, grab a design and create that design in metal, for example, here in the metal shop. So the plasma cutter was used to create the little owl. And then we'll also take you into the Digifab Lab to show you how some of these designs can be duplicated, and we can also teach people about small batch manufacturing here. So I'm just gonna come over here and plug in.
So this is our metal shop. I think, you know, what makes us really unique if you ever come for a visit is the people who end up teaching in our spaces are not always the typical people that you see. We have, we spend a lot of time making sure that we recruit people who are representative of our students and making sure there's enough women representation. And so two of the primary instructors in here are both women.
Yay.
And our lead instructor for our advanced manufacturing group is also a woman, and she's a woman of color. So it's very important to us to make sure that that happens and that we promote more women and people of color in manufacturing, making, and the trades. And so all sorts of metal shop tools. We have plasma cutters right behind, or to your left, is the cage with all the welders and other sorts of tools, grinders, etc.
Yep, so make, take, gas, plasma, lots of the tools that, you know, you might need to bend, shape metal. And I started my life as a maker at the Talix Foundry. So this is a place that is close to my heart, although I'm hardly ever in here anymore because I'm more likely to be in the tech lab or in the Digifab Lab these days. So we're headed over now to the newest space here at the Foundry, our Digifab Lab, and this is where we work with kids in that advanced manufacturing program. It's really all about how do you do micro manufacturing? How do you learn the skills that you might need to walk into a innovative local company and feel that you have some of the skills to be able to be part of the manufacturing that is going on here in the Buffalo area. So we have Cnc Machines. We have a really interesting machine in here that was put on site by TapeCon. TapeCon does a lot of flexographic printing. I was going to say postmodern printing. So this little label maker is letting us make made at the Foundry labels and teaching kids how to use a label and printing machine. But TapeCon does this for, yay, made at the Foundry. Does this for medical devices and for user interfaces on machines like this one. So it's really interesting for us to think about, again, micro manufacturing setups and the capacity for kids that we work with to develop their own company to make labels for some of the businesses that are here on site. So as well as creating an opportunity for kids to learn more about advanced manufacturing, we're also able to support kids in thinking about how they might become small businesses that set up here at the Foundry too. We're trying to cut new plates for the M3Ds, and that Wazer lets us cut glass, metal, ceramic material. We're loving it. We also found out, well, that's the cleaning pattern. So we also found out that that we can do some etching in glass. So that got Amina and I really cool. Excited. Yeah. So even some of, you know, as you know, you hack something and figure out, oh, we didn't realize that we could also etch glass if we just said that the glass was thicker than might normally be used here. We can create some interesting designs. Megan's showing my M3D plate cutting adventure. Really loving the Wazer. Again, you know, we're most familiar with thinking about water jet cutters as being huge monsters, and this is a nice medium-sized monster that fits really nicely in our Digifab Lab space. We also have another Flowforge here, this one with a pass-through, so this is the Pro. We're getting really excited about the potential for cutting patterns on large pieces of wood and making panels for either lighting or for rear screen projection or making some signs. So our Digifab Lab.
So with that, I think that's our space.
Do you want to open it up for questions and answers?
Yes.
So hi everybody on site, back in Maker headquarters. I think we're ready to kind of sit down and see if anybody wants to talk about the creation of makerspaces, what we've got going on here, education in makerspaces, serving the community in makerspaces, making sure that our brown and Black communities are well served. Any kinds of questions along those lines, we'd love to chat about.
Oh, how does someone become a member of the Foundry?
Really easy. Go to thefoundrybuffalo.org and look at our membership page. Right now, the wood shop is open 2 days a week. The tech lab is open 1 day a week. So if you're in the Buffalo area, actually the best thing to do would be to reach out to info@, thefoundrybuffalo.org and just tell us a little bit about yourself and which of the spaces you're most interested in using, and we'll let you know whether we're open now or whether we're excited about meeting with you in the future.
Yeah, normally there's a whole series of safety classes and everything scheduled, but right now with COVID, we're just sort of ad hoc, catch as catch can, and seeing if it aligns with some of people's needs. I think also we tend to, our main mission is really supporting entrepreneurship and education. And so if there's a person who's running a business who needs a particular tool, then it's a little bit easier to figure out how they end up in the space. Okay, how much vacant space is available?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. I think we've got 2.
We have several open spaces downstairs. I want to say 5, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're all between 100 and 200 square feet. Most of our bigger spaces, which are like 400 and 500 square feet, are occupied. But we really don't have any space available in terms of where we go next. So we're looking to expand to the outdoors. We have a covered patio, which we didn't show in the video, but that's another 1,000+ square feet. Actually, I think it's closer, 1,500 maybe. Anyway, we're looking to enclose that as well. We need another shop space because, like we were talking about with Beds for Buffalo, there's really just too many things going on normally. And I'm sure that other maker spaces can attest to trying to fit people into the same shop at the same time is really challenging. And so we're trying to make sure that we have sort of a copy of a flexible space that we'd be able to convert.
So because we're really interested in filling the space with after-school programs and adult programs in the evening and daytime programming through Buffalo Schools and through Youth Build, it's a challenge. We need additional space, but we'd love to especially talk to people who are interested in moving ahead on small batch manufacturing. that might be a really fantastic way for a new group to get involved with the Foundry. Sorry, was there another question?
Yeah, there's another question on here. Is the Foundry entirely self-funded? Do you rely on sponsorship from companies, organizations, or your city or state? I wish that we could say that we were funded by the city and the state.
Hi city, hi state.
Hi
We'd
city,
love
hi
some more
city. We would
funding.
love it. No, but so the Foundry is, again, during non-COVID times, so we lost about 40% of our earned income, but we were able to sustain ourselves through other grants that we had and are currently writing. So I would say it's a combination. Normally we're about 60% funded by ourselves. And the other 40 is grants and other relationships that we build with particular sponsors and whatnot.
So I came from higher ed with a little bit of a background in managing grant-funded programs and seeking grants. And Megan and I have been a good team to do some grant funding for Makerspace programming. And then that with the evening classes with adults and the funded programming for youth with Buffalo Public School has really kept us open through these particular interesting times.
There's a few more. Okay.
Teaching a class, yeah.
Let's see. I'd like to talk to you about teaching a class for young people doing programming in electronics, like Arduino, but better, Circuit Python.
Get in touch with me. I'm Deb at thefoundrybuffalo.org. Love to talk to people who want to do youth programming. Also work with a lot of people to develop as educators. So yeah, happy to talk to anyone who's local about education. Right now, we're not really doing much virtual, but I'm happy to talk to people about things that you're excited about doing.
Okay, next. How expensive was it to start out? Not expensive, I would say, actually, in starting, other than, if you're not familiar with the process of getting a nonprofit started, that can be expensive just with the filing fees. I think they're close to $1,000 right now to just even submit the application. But other than that, I was running my business, which was expensive to get started only because the tools cost a lot. But the space itself really I was just paying a regular rent here with a few other folks who co-founded the space. And so it just started slowly, and we got a bunch of random volunteers to get really excited about it and build out different spaces. Over time, when we start looking at the renovation costs of our building, we're past probably $500,000 worth of renovation. But initially we didn't need that. It's just we added an upstairs because we needed to have Western New York Youth Build wanted to partner with us and land on site with us. So that was a $200,000 renovation, or close to 200,000. Anyway, it starts adding up over time, but I think what I've learned, especially from other makerspaces, is it just starts with one tool, lending it out and or working on things together. So it doesn't have to be expensive.
If you grow as things emerge, it's probably slightly less anxiety provoking, but only maybe slightly.
Next question. Can you talk a little bit about Bid to Build? Bid to Build's our major fundraiser for the year. We actually went, online this year. So if anybody has questions on online fundraising, we learned a lot. We did a combination of Facebook Live as well as some software with ClickBid. So I have mixed feelings on various platforms if you're interested in knowing about online fundraising. But typically people are on site and it's a live auction where it's all custom made items from folks at the Foundry and volunteers who make beautiful items. anywhere from coffee tables to Deb made a mobile, which is really cool. I don't know, other things. Bird feeder that we saw earlier. So all different sort of stuff. And that's really one of our major fundraisers of the year. And talking in terms of funding streams, that's one of our major funding streams for the year as well. How heavily do you rely on volunteers to keep the space running and to promote your space to the community? A lot. I think everybody in the Makerspace community is sort of in the same boat. With COVID, it's been a little bit difficult to sort of maintain that level of volunteerism. And so, you know, when we were talking about reduced hours for the shops and stuff, we've just really pulled back and prioritized our major focus of our mission, which is the entrepreneurs on site and the students who are learning to be makers and learning about entrepreneurship. So we've relied a little bit less lately on volunteers, I would say, but in order to have the Makerspace run, as you know, many of you are familiar with, we pretty much exclusively rely on members to, or volunteers to make sure that the shops are open and they're taken care of. And
so we call our lead volunteers supervisors, and the supervisors rotate through the shops and have hours which they supervise, you know, those particular spaces where they have some expertise. And generally those are people who come up through membership and then spend a lot of time here, develop a real strength in one area, and then, you know, want to turn around and give back. And many of them are also educators in the adult programs. So that's, I guess, the primary pathway for our supervisors. And then we also have, you know, Saturday adventures here, where we have a particular project that we're focused on, and that brings in, you know, great groups of volunteers as well. And we rely on those community groups to come in and help out with different projects as well.
5 minutes left. Is there anything you want to say in the last 3 minutes?
Not really. Come move to Buffalo.
Yeah, move to Buffalo. We have a lot of fun here.
We really would be excited about meeting different folks who have expertise in textiles and tech. So if you are local and you haven't been over here, schedule a time to come by and check out those two spaces. I'm actively recruiting educators in those two areas. Also metal. If you have some strength in that space, you might want to pop by and hang out with us too.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming by.
Hopefully we
fun
asked
having
some
you
good
here.
questions. Yeah.